Sawate Mihinomen Est Stella at Hawk S Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast, episode 270 for February MMXXVI. Batgirl the Oracle is brought to you by MileHighComics.com, your new and collectible comic book store. Mile High Comics has an inventory of over 5 million comics from the gold, silver, bronze, and modern age, and over 100,000 trade paperbacks. If you're not into the vintage stock, Mile High Comics also has a subscription service called the New Issue Comics Express, offering a discounted price for comics ready to hit the shelves. So if you're looking for vintage back issues or a great modern subscription service, be sure to check out milehighcomics.com. Well, there was a cease and desist order against this guy. I don't know how many years ago, but then he convinced me that he needed to come back on for Valentine's Day to talk about the trials and tribulations and overlap at some point with Dick Babs and Corey, of course. It is my good friend, my ride or die for podcasting over at Required Reading. It's Mr. Tom Panarese.
Hey, when was the last time I was
I
on
was
this
trying
show?
to think over the weekend. I could not recall. Do you think it was one of those crossover? Well, I did that big one of one of the events, the time events, the time crisis, which I can't recall
Yeah,
what that was called.
I did JLA Tower of Babel with
Oh,
you, which
true.
was, and we did the JLA Titans and
Yeah.
the Judas contract stuff, but that was a
Yeah.
while back. I don't know. I don't know when the
Yeah.
last time I was on the
To
show
see.
was.
Yeah, I'd have to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think people need to pray for America's youth, though, because Tom, instead of lesson planning or teaching, decided that it would be more appropriate to prep for this episode. He sent me a text in his classroom, and I'm thinking, what are the kids doing?
I think I said that to you while I was like on my planning period or something anyway. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Well,
no,
I'm glad that
the
you.
kids were reading Act One of Romeo and
Oh,
Juliet.
there you go. I've mentioned the friar a couple times recently
Mm.
because in Latin, with the present subjunctive, there are vowel changes. And so I get them to remember some sort of phrase like he wears a diamond tiara. There's one that's like, we beat fat friars. And I'm like, oh, it's like the friar who had that one job. Yeah. So I've mentioned
Yeah.
it a couple times.
Nice.
But yeah. Well, I'm glad to see you on here. I'm interested for our discussion to see how it goes.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's some continuity errors, and whether this Nightwing Annual 2 holds up.
I was getting a headache trying to figure out like the
What was
timeline
going on? Yeah.
because like I'm kind of convinced that the right hand was not talking to the left hand when it came to the relationship of Dick and Corey and Dick and Babs,
Yeah.
but we'll get into that.
It seems like it kind of like the overlap with Dick and Huntress and Dick
Mm,
and Babs as well.
yeah.
So hopefully things are better. Well, Tom wondered if there was going to be a game at the beginning, and I said, no, I didn't plan anything. But then I came up with something very quickly. So Tom has been sending me Instagram reels recently of very scandalous books, one of which.
Excuse me.
One of which
Excuse me.
one of which was a Three Little Pigs adaptation where, let's just say, the female has a relationship with one of the pigs and he's a cop. But anyways, I just want to let people know that's what
I
Tom
have
does in
my
his free
phone
time.
next to me. I can pull up the reel and show
I'm
that it's
sure. I'm
you been
sure.
saying to me, you sick, sick woman.
Sick person. Okay, so we're gonna play Kiss Mary Kill real quick. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. A bee, an anthropomorphic bee, because I recently saw this one. I don't know if I sent you that cover yet.
Okay.
An anthropomorphic cucumber and tomato, a la Veggie Tales. Again, this is something I saw on Instagram. They have to come together. So it would be
Yeah, I would probably probably do.
yeah. And but and the third one will be the reindeer shifter that we spoke about earlier. So Kiss Mary Kill. What do you think?
Oh my God.
Thank you for coming on Batgirl Oracle again. You've missed
What did I
this.
do?
You
What have
did.
I gotten myself into? Kiss the bee,
Oh,
marry the reindeer, kill the
Okay.
vegetables. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for playing. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. If I were to, because sometimes people wonder, well, you didn't answer. Well, he's ashamed. Don't be ashamed at what you like. I think I would maybe kill the bee, um, kiss the cucumber tomato combo, and then marry the reindeer.
Mm,
I think so.
okay.
Okay. Well, we'll move on now.
I just couldn't bring myself to kill a pollinator.
That is true. Yeah. He just looked the oddest of all the
Oh,
covers.
I haven't seen that cover yet. So you probably did
Yet.
send it to me. Well, I haven't checked my Instagram since I got
Yeah,
home. So
I did see it recently. It's
yeah.
unhinged things have been happening, I will say. And Chuck Tingle, which of course our friend has mentioned before over at Required Reading. So now Chuck Tingle covers pop up as well. But okay, but we're going to get into some serious stuff. And it is talking about Dick Babs, Corey. The main event will be Nightwing Annual 2, but there's
Mhm.
certainly some lead up and just to refresh people as to what was going on in Nightwing at the time. It's been a while since I've covered it, and I read over this weekend from 98, I think, to
Oh, wow.
117, just to remind myself, because I think the last time I was reading was War Games, so that was great.
Okay.
As I guess an introductory topic that really has nothing to do with this romance topic. I was, I guess, surprised to, I was going to say startled, but it was more of a surprise. I was reading issue number 100, and there's some history that goes through it, and it of course leads up to afterwards you've got the Nightwing year one, so I think it
Hmm.
moves into that. But at one point in his narration, Dick says racially quote unquote other, white but not white enough. And that was something that I had, and I texted you right away and I said, oh,
Yeah.
is Dick not actually white? And I just, do you recall this panel happening? It's been a while. What are your thoughts on
I
it? Is this something that we see in current times that he might not be technically white?
I don't recall this panel, but I do remember. Now, according to Wikipedia, Devin Grace had introduced this idea, but I could have sworn it was part of the four-issue mini that preceded the ongoing. So we're talking like what, 97
Oh,
or whatever.
sure.
But don't, but it's been so many years since I read that, so
Mm-hmm.
don't hold me to that. But I do remember that at least for a time, and I don't know still because DC keeps resetting things, that at least at this time with this book, with this issue, and after Dick Grayson was considered to have Romani heritage, the I think the I don't think the word gypsy was used. I think it was so, which is sort of a yeah, that phrase white but not white enough, considering the way Romani was stereotyped and persecuted
Mm-hmm.
and exterminated, et cetera, et cetera. That probably is a very good descriptor, or at least like what he does. But yeah, so from what I understand, and when I was looking it up today, and I think it might have been Wikipedia or whatever, said that which of his parents is of the Romani heritage, is like, so he's like of mixed heritage,
Mm-hmm.
is never consistent, but a lot of times it's his mother.
Okay.
So, but I want, like I said, I want to say that some of the earlier solo stuff of his from like the mid 90s, or maybe later on or something, does deal with this, but
Okay.
it's been a very, very long time since I've read all of that Nightwing, Chuck Dixon Nightwing run.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, from what I was reading, the Tom Taylor run,
Mhm.
it doesn't seem like it's something that's been picked up. I wonder how much it really informed the writing from here on out, because even, like I said, this was issue 100, so I was reading 17
Yeah.
issues after that, and it wasn't really a factor. And I feel like that would be an interesting storyline for him, especially being in
Mhm.
Bloodhaven, which seems to be filled with people of different nationalities and cultures,
Yeah.
on the outside of what I've read. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. I've never thought of him as being not white, so that
Hmm.
was an interesting dynamic, or yeah, descriptor to
Yeah.
put in there. I know I have some panels that I have laid out here, but I feel like I might just wait until you do your lead up history, and then if
Hmm.
there's anything that I feel like I would like to fill in there, I can talk about. Do you agree or disagree with that? Or do you want me to
Um,
talk about the panels that I've pulled in?
I well, I start just prior to Infinite Crisis. So if you wanted to talk about um 100 and 109, and then 117 is
Is in
in my
here.
synopsis.
Yeah.
So you yeah, those two issues you have here.
Yeah.
And I think you've talked about Nightwing 100, I believe. Is that the one where 100 101, is that the one where the tarantula incident where he's
No,
assaulted,
it's
or is
past
that
that.
it's
Yeah.
past that?
So
Okay.
he
I
with
couldn't remember which.
100, this was post-war games.
Okay.
And with this show, I've at least shown that, Dick and Babs are very much broken up.
Hmm.
They're just not seen eye to eye. Babs is like you're stuck in the past, Dick, and she also wants some autonomy and to be on, be independent and be able to care for herself.
Yeah.
There's also, I think, a difference in maybe positivity, where Nightwing I think is very positive, and Babs at this time kind of goes up and down in terms of like being overly critical of herself. All
Hmm.
that to say that they're not together,
Okay.
but in yeah, and they've this tarantula business has been going on. He has, yeah, already been assaulted, and she killed Blockbuster, and you could almost say he basically also did because he let it happen, and that's
Yeah.
been weighing on him. And so with 100, this is post-war games. He didn't realize that Steph was killed. He was on the mend because he was shot again. But this is when he like finally breaks up with Tarantula and also wants to turn her in, and does bring her in, and he wants to bring himself in as well because he feels like he's very much also to blame for Blockbuster's murder. But then Amy was like, no, she makes up some sort of undercover story so he doesn't take the fall, and he is ungrateful, and she calls
Hmm.
him a jerk, which I very much appreciated, like, you're welcome, you jerk. But in the moment when he thinks he's going to get locked up, he calls Babs and he apologizes for letting her down and affirming that she was right, that he was in fact living in the past, and tells her that he loves her. And this is all left on voicemail.
Hmm.
And later on at the end of the issue, Babs chickens out, which were her words really, and calls him and leaves a voicemail saying that he never let her down and she loves him, and basically implies that they'll find a way back to each other at some point. So
Okay.
that was the big thing with
Yeah.
number 100. When we get to 109, which I do have a point about Nightwing year one, which I will ask. There is this girl who, depending on the artist, and I think her name was Sophia.
Sophia.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sophia, it's something Italian, Testa or Teresta or something like
Yeah,
that.
because he's very much acting as a henchman.
Yeah.
With this crime boss that seems to be like lower tier but still a crime boss, and sometimes Sophia looks like she's an adult but actually we find out she's 16. So it very much depends on the artist, because when she was saying like I've got a crush on you, I thought, oh wow, and it looks
Yeah.
like an adult, but then later on you're like 16, I'm like, oh my gosh, no, no, no. But she's going through his things and finds this picture of Babs that I think is also connected to a clock for some reason. But he says she's one of my best friends in the whole world. And she says, well, but not your girlfriend. And he says, not at the moment, but he's going to change that. He's going to get her back. I've loved her ever since I was a kid. She's the only thing that ever made sense to me, no matter what else was happening. And I'm not saying she's the only woman I've ever loved. I mean, truthfully, the women in my life, dot, dot, dot. Maybe I've been a little too appreciative, but with Babs, it's special. It makes me be a better dot, dot, dot. And then, yeah,
Yeah.
she picks a lamp up, I think, and throws it at him.
Yeah.
So
You're you're right about the art because I read I think like 110 to 117 like around here, and the artists change, and there's one part of that whole storyline where like he sends her in to like be part of a mob takeover or
yeah,
something, and the way she's drawn there, she looks like she's 30.
yeah,
And I'm like, wait, I thought she was a teenager and stuff. What's interesting too is this is around the same time in Birds of Prey where there's that storyline where Helena is essentially doing the same thing with the mob.
yeah,
Because I was reading those issues. So yeah.
yeah. A comment before you go on to your synopsis.
Okay.
In did you reread Nightwing Year One?
I have read it
Okay.
in recent years, so you
Well,
could
I
try
just
to
want to
ask.
say, I know that people think that I don't like Batman, which I do actually like Batman, but I do think that he's a jerk, and I know that they think I'm biased with that. But I don't know how you can read Nightwing Year One and not think that Batman is a jerk with just how he dismisses Nightwing. He's setting up Jason without talking to Nightwing.
Yeah.
He uses Babs to trick Nightwing, like to lie to him, which I'm surprised that Babs did that. There's a line that Nightwing feels betrayed and is like, I understand, Batman's number one for you. And I'm like, oh, I don't think that she would put Batman and like right and wrong over that. But it was bad. I don't, he was a jerk the
Oh,
entire
he was
time.
a total jerk. And I mean, this goes back to the post-crisis Nightwing origin, right? Because in the pre-crisis, they essentially like grow apart.
Mm,
And he essentially outgrows being Robin and he gives it up and he quits and eventually they bury the hatchet and there's a partnership essentially between them. But from what I remember from the Max Allan Collins run, so it's about issue 407, 8, 9, 10, or whatever. So this is back like when they reintroduced Jason Todd as kind of the punk
mm,
kid, the one that we kind of see now today. There's an issue called the Did Robin Die Tonight? And so it's a flashback of like, well, how did Dick Grayson stop being Robin? It's really one of the only post-crisis appearances of Dick Grayson as Robin, at least at that point. And from what I remember, like Batman fires him after he gets shot by the Joker. And so throughout the 400s, through Death of the Family, into the Titans books, and then A Lonely Place to Die, because Marv Wolfman was writing both, there is some serious tension between the two of them to the point where when Dick finally goes to confront Bruce, this is in Titans 55, I think, to confront Bruce in the Batcave after he's come back from space and seen because they were off on New Kronos. And so they come back from space in issue 55. This is where Donna becomes Troya, is no longer Wonder Girl. Dick finds out about Jason Todd's death because cousin Oliver was looking at the Titans files and saw that there's something about Jason Todd, like why isn't he listed? Blah blah blah. There's like an unknown status, and he shows the Batcave. He just starts yelling at Bruce. Why did you let him become Robin before he was ready? And then Bruce decks him and starts screaming at him. So there's
wow.
there's a lot of this,
Yeah.
and so when Dixon takes it on in Nightwing 101 and Nightwing Year One, it makes total sense. And yes, Batman's a jerk. So
See, we're hearing
yeah,
it from all
yeah,
angles, people,
yeah,
whoever are these sycophants that are like, Batman's
yeah.
so lovely. Okay. Well, I'm going to give Tom the floor. I do want to just, I guess, raise Tom up
Mm.
because he said, "Do you want me to write a synopsis?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I can look for it on the wiki." And he's like, "No, no, I'll do it." And so I thought, oh, I'll have a couple paragraphs, of this. And I come back and there's like a little manifesto here that goes through. But I just very much appreciate the time you went in
Yeah,
there.
of
And I
course.
certainly learned a lot because he'll go into other backgrounds, which I think will be very informative for our
Yeah,
audience because it's been a while since I've talked about Dick, I think, on this show, with the
yeah.
exception of Smut. But here we go.
I
The
was gonna
other
let
one.
that one sit there.
I know,
Um,
I
yeah, no,
know.
these are fun to write. So
I'm
the
glad.
kind of geek rabbit hole you get to go down. So yes, so before I am going to summarize Nightwing Annual 2, but before we get to that, we have to take a brief look at what had been going on with Dick Grayson and his relationships just prior to and during Infinite Crisis. And because if you were listening to the last episode, um, Stella and her guest were talking about Stella and Shag were talking about Infinite Crisis, and we all know that. And I'll bring this up later. You all know that Dick was supposed to die, or at least that was the original plan. And we'll probably bring this up later because I have an opinion on that whole idea. But this particular annual takes place just after the he got very, very hurt, right? So and right before the last pages of Infinite Crisis number 7, where he, Tim, and Bruce are on the boat heading out to parts unknown. So we do need some of the context because this came out in what, 2007, 2008?
Yeah.
I don't remember what the date was. So it's a couple this came out a little while after Infinite Crisis, like not like right after it to fill in the missing year. And we do know that Dick returns some point in the middle of 52 because he's in a very big part with Kate Kane kind of welcoming her, so to speak, if I remember correctly. All right, but what's his life like? In short, too long didn't read. Messy. Very, very messy. Um, So it's going to happen across an issue of The Outsiders, or at least what I'm covering, 3 or 4 quick mentions of him in Birds of Prey, 6 issues of the Nightwing solo title. There's a couple of pages of the Titans Secret Files and Origins of 2005. The writers for these were Judd Winnick on The Outsiders, Gail Simone on Birds of Prey, Devin Grayson on Nightwing, and Chris Costello on the Titans Secret Files and Origins. I'll get to the creative team for the Nightwing Annual when we get to that part of the summary. So I'll start with the Outsiders. So just prior to Infinite Crisis, there was this Outsiders Teen Titans crossover called The Insiders, and this is where Superboy, who has recently discovered that his father was Lex Luthor. Like he was cloned from Superman. He always knew that. And there was the mystery of who his other who the other donor, who was mixed in with the DNA. It was Lex Luthor, which I believe, and Michael Bailey, I think, can back me up with this, is a retcon courtesy of Jeff Johns, who once suggested it in like a letters page in the Superboy comic.
Mm.
Because I want to say that the director of Cadmus, like Westwood or whatever, was originally the other donor. But anyway, so Lex had programmed him or something. Some switch was flipped where Connor shades his head and he carves like an L into his shirt and he goes berserk and tries to kill his teammates. Alongside this is the character of Indigo. Now, she's this android from the future who shows up in the Graduation Day miniseries that kicked off this Titans Outsiders iteration and ended the Titans and Young Justice. It was a Titans Young Justice crossover. So in that miniseries, 2 major deaths occur. One, Lilith, who was Omen, was killed by this robot Indigo, who just shows up from the future, and kind of defense mechanisms kick in, and she kills him. The other person to die in that series was Donna Troy,
Mm.
killed by a runaway Superman robot. Now, at this point, her programming finally turns on, everything clicks into place. And instead of being the hero that she's been, this kind of naive robot who's fallen in love with the son of Metamorpho, so to speak, shipped. And I'm trying to explain this as best I can without getting too much into the weeds. She's revealed to be Brainiac 8 from the future. So her, Luthor, Brainiac, current Brainiac, Brainiac 1, and Superboy fight the Titans. The heroes win. Connor goes into hiding, which is why he's in Smallville in the beginning of Infinite Crisis. He
Right.
tried to kill his teammates and he went into hiding, and he doesn't want to be Superboy because he's dealing with it. Um, and Indigo was killed. So when we open up issue 28 of The Outsiders, this is like the aftermath issue. Think X Factor number 87, where they're all dealing with the fallout from the Executioner song. And so there's really no action in the issue. Everybody in this issue is dealing with the emotional aftermath of the ordeal. And I'm not going to go through the whole issue. I'm just hitting just a few pages that involve Dick Grayson. So it opens with a reflection on who Indigo was. And then we see a 9-panel grid where Dick is having a conversation with Corey, and it's only their heads. And so she asks him what he's thinking about. He says he's thinking about Shift and Indigo. And Corey thinks it's strange considering what they've been doing. And we turn the page and we get a full page splash of them in bed post coitus. Like sheets everywhere, match. I mean, it was a lot. And this is where I do look at Starfire and do my Shag impersonation. She's hot, and really, honestly, like Matthew Clark is the artist, and Corey has always been drawn to be gorgeous, right? But his rendition of Corey in the way he draws her here, which is way more adult, like in terms of age, than like what Perez was drawing, where she was, still kind of like a like really gorgeous, but very, kind of she had like a softer face and stuff like that. Clark's rendition of her like as this kind of more mature character, and she's had a lot of maturity since leaving the Titans, the original New Titans run and stuff. And Winnick writes her that way. It's actually a very good portrayal of her. And I thought the artwork really worked really well, even though she is, and that's not just because she's pretty much naked in the entire scene.
I
But yeah,
will
she's,
say that, just sorry to interrupt, but
you
I've
know,
never seen condom packets in a comic before.
mm,
So I
that's
was
right.
I was shocked to see those.
Looks like there's more than
Only
one too.
two. And the reason why I say only is because there's a line later on that says, from Dick, that says, I realize that, believe me, because it was something about, I won't be able to walk for the
For an
next
hour's
hour.
hour.
And that struck me not only because of whatever they were doing, but also because Babs has a similar joke in Nightwing Annual 2. And I was like, man, this joke has legs, I guess.
Yes, I guess it does.
Yeah.
So does Corey.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, maybe I'll do Starfire episode one day or something. I could do a whole tangent here. I have more about her and appearances later on. Anyway, the conversation turns to why they wound up sleeping together, even though that's not why he came by her apartment. He tells her that and that he's always felt alive with her, which is something he needed because he's sick of seeing his friends die. And of course, like I said, Donna's dead, Lilith's dead, and Donna Troy and Dick Grayson are like a brother and sister to one another. And so Donna's death cut really, really deep. In fact, like they were gonna reform the Titans, and Dick was like, and Dick, I think it was Dick or Wally, or Dick and Roy or somebody like that, were having a conversation, and one of them was like, no, this was Donna. Like that's how hard it hit them that she was dead. And you can kind of tell that he really hasn't gotten over it. And that's one of the many things that is kind of pushing him into this really messy mess that he's in throughout his these several issues. Corey tells him that he's not to blame for Indigo's death, and he says you'll tell that to Shift, and she rolls over and just faces away from him like the mood is over. Now, I had misremembered. I thought that this was Dick sleeping with Corey just before she went off to space because Donna recruits her for the mission in Infinite Crisis, and it's not. I think this is supposed to take place actually even before the Return of Donna Troy miniseries. And if you want to know all about the Return of Donna Troy miniseries, go back to episode 109 of Pop Culture Affidavit because I did a whole, there's part of the JL May crossover that year. And I took that on and I did a whole rundown of the series as well as I did my best efforts to explain who she was. You'll learn all about New Kronos and everything. And I should say that Shag put the crossover together. He knew that I covered it and should have mentioned it on your show when he was on last month. But did he? No.
Sorry about that.
Eh,
Need some marriage counseling, you
I'll
two?
be all right. I'll be all right. Pistols at dawn, Shag. Pistols at dawn. All right. Okay. We get another Dick and Corey moment in Titans Secret Files and Origins 2005. It's a story called Titans Hunt. Now, I actually don't own this comic anymore, and I could not find it on the DC app or online. I did find grabs of three important pages, though. The first is kind of funny to me. It's a scene in Tim Drake's room in the West Coast Titans Tower, and Corey is with him, and she's giving Tim Dick's first Nightwing costume, the disco collar and everything. And he's like, "Hey, that's no way." She's like, "Oh no, she's not giving to him." He finds it in the room that they're in, and she's like, "Nothing." And he's holding it up, and he says, "Hold on, feathers? Dick Grayson, my idol, your boyfriend, wore feathers, and what's with the lapels?" She says ex-boyfriend, and he always said they were totally Alfred's idea, but Wally never let him live it down. So I love that. Um, so anyway, so we get this conversation between her and Dick at the end of the story, and she talks to him about why he's leaving the Outsiders at that point. And then Corey reminds him this probably takes place around the same time as Outsiders 28. And Corey reminds him that the Titans, the Outsiders, the heroes he has worked for alongside for all of these years that he's been a hero are his family. And Dick more or less says that's why he has to distance himself. He watched Donna get killed. He watched Jack Drake was killed back in Identity Crisis. And earlier in the story, Wildebeest had kidnapped Tim, Corey, and Cyborg, and the Beast Boy like led the other Titans to get them back, like over on in New York City, like at the east, the former Titans Tower in New York City. And Dick finally says to her, "Don't you get it? Do you think I like waking up to find that the two people I love most in the world are missing?" Which I think is supposed to refer to her and Tim. I'm not exactly sure, but Corey says that if Dick ever wanted to go back to the tower, meaning join the Titans, she would go with him. So, but at the end of the issue story, he gives her his old Nightwing costume. He's like, "I believe this belongs to you," and she flies off holding it, and she's kind of smiling. So, then we get into Birds of Prey. Now, you've covered these issues, I believe, 86 through 91 already.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I read them just to see what mentions there are of Dick and Babs. It was an actually really good storyline, so I enjoyed it. But it looks like in issue 86, they're kind of together, or at least he's there where they have a friendly interaction with one another. But there seems to be an unspoken tension, and then he's not mentioned that much again. But between this and the Nightwing issues, it seems like they've broken up at this point. So maybe he's not cheating on her with Corey per se. Like I said, this is a mess. And
Yeah.
like I said earlier, I don't know if the editors of one book were talking to the editors of another book or if this was like, so it's just kind of the thing. Now in Nightwing, this is exhausting, isn't it? We get the final issues of Devin Grayson's run. You said what, 90
98
through
through
98 through
117. Yeah.
117. Now, her run, I forgot that it started all the way back in 71.
Mm.
I thought it was shorter than that. Or I thought Chuck Dixon went longer, but I guess I forgot that like he and Scott McDaniel came back for year one, and then so in these issues he's kind of gone to the bad side because he's working with Deathstroke to train the Ravager. He's also protecting some mob boss's daughter, that's Sophia. If you're unfamiliar with the Ravager, this was the identity originally taken on by Grant Wilson, that's Slade's son, back in the New Teen Titans #2 back in 1980. What happened was that the Hive gave Deathstroke's powers to him, but his body couldn't handle it. He dies at the end of the issue trying to be like his dad. This Ravager is Rose Wilson. She was introduced during the Total Chaos storyline as the child of Slade and a Cambodian madam named Sweet Lily. Sweet Lily is dead. She died in it's like Deathstroke 50 or the Annual or something, because another person named the Ravager named Wade like went after that's actually not that big of a storyline. But anyway, so she ends up living with the Titans for a while. She was actually Leanne Harper's nanny
Mm.
when she was there, and then the Titans broke up again, and she was put in foster care. In the Titans one half, which was like a Wizard exclusive, Slade gets to her and he starts brainwashing her. And in fact, he brainwashes her so badly that she at one point stabs out her eye to be more like him. Which is why Rose Wilson, if you ever see her as the Ravager, is wearing an eye patch like her father. Nightwing's involvement here is twofold. One, he's trying to keep the secret society of villains out of Bloodhaven. It's kind of a Faustian bargain, and we see what happens at the end of that whole thing because Deathstroke's the one who drops chemo on Bloodhaven
Right.
in Infinite Crisis. The second is to basically undermine his control over Rose, and it works because it results. But it does work. She walks away at the end. Barbara's mentioned in issue number 112 as his ex. In issue 114, he contacts Oracle to fill her in on how the society has obtained large quantities of the main ingredient in the Venom steroid. In that exchange, there's clearly sadness or tension in Barbara's voice. And she also sends Arsenal in to confront Dick about his latest job, and Arsenal reports back to her that Dick's getting in over his head. Nightwing number 117 is the very last issue of the series before the 1 year later shift. Devin Grayson wrote it, Brad Walker penciled, Rodney Ramos inked. The cover is by Phil Hester. It shows Dick running away from a burning building with Barbara in his arms. So at the end of the previous issue, Dick had headed into Bloodhaven in the aftermath of the chemo disaster. He's basically Superman has said, "Do not do this," and he doesn't listen to Superman, and he because of the radiation, and he says he winds up getting knocked unconscious in an explosion. Batman finds him, and we open the issues of him having some visions of his parents, the Teen Titans, Barbara, the adult Titans, Tarantula, Sophia, the mob daughter from the prior issues, Deathstroke, Ravager, and Batman. And the dream ends with him swirling in a whirlpool of red and asking Batman if he still believes in him. He wakes up in the Batcave being attended to by Alfred, who will not allow him to get up. And as we all know that these guys should listen to Alfred, but they rarely do, but Dick really doesn't actually have any choice here. He confesses to letting Blockbuster die, not realizing that Batman is in the Batcave, who and has been listening the whole time. And Batman calls him out for that. He says he can forgive him for Blockbuster, but it won't mean anything if he doesn't forgive himself. And let's take a moment because I believe that is a moment of compassion from Batjerk.
Gosh, wow.
What?
Yeah. Take a sip.
Yeah. Dick then visits Sophia in the hospital, calls off whatever mission he had her on. He wants her to be free, grow up, live a normal life, and he sends her off to boarding school. He then crashes in on Deathstroke and Ravager. In the middle of the fight with Slade, he reveals to Rose that the chunk of kryptonite that Slade surgically implanted in Rose's dead eye socket a couple of issues earlier has radiation, can be deadly. And there's a deep pull for this, actually. Lex Luthor used to wear the kryptonite ring, the one that Batman has. And Lex lost his hand because the radiation from the kryptonite gave him cancer, and he eventually died. And there was the whole Lex Luthor 2 thing, and now he's better, et cetera, et cetera. So Rose realizes that her father has put the exact same thing in her body, so she turns on him and runs. And Rose will show up, villain, anti-hero, Titan, etc., on later throughout most of the rest of the run of that series. So the issue concludes in an airfield. Uh, Zinda, Lady Blackhawk, is bringing the Birds of Prey's plane in for a landing. Dick's standing on the runway with those like light thingies, those, and
Sure.
a sign that says Gordon. And so Zinda drops Barbara off on the runway. I'm pretty sure she stops the plane first, and Dick's waiting there for her. So he talks to her about Tarantula and Blockbuster, what he's been going through. He talks about responsibility and losing sight of his mission. He says that he lost her. Barbara says she got scared. He then tells her that he's off to save the universe, but he asks her to marry him first, and the issue ends with their kiss. And that's where Nightwing Annual 2 actually opens, like a gray tone flashback of that exact moment. So if you hadn't read that issue, we get it. And the story is called Hero's Journey. The creative team is writer Mark Andreyko, penciler Joe Bennett, inker Jack Jadson, sorry, letter Phil Balsam, colorist Tony Wright. The cover by Bennett and Jadson shows Robin and Batgirl happily swinging together over Gotham. So, as I said, the book opens with the proposal and then cuts to the moment in Infinite Crisis number 7, where Nightwing is almost killed by an energy blast from Alexander Luthor. From here on out, the issue alternates between Barbara rehabilitating Dick from his injuries and flashing back to the important and formative moments in their relationship. First, we see in point of view flashes Wonder Woman and Dr. Midnight taking him to safety, Dr. Midnight treating him while Barbara watches, Barbara telling him to fight for her. And that last image moves into a dream where Babs is like sucked into a black hole and he's attacked by zombie figures of Batman and Chemo, and it's all some sort of nightmare. Dick then winds up at a target range where Tarantula and the Joker, who's wearing the Killing Joke Hawaiian shirt and hat, are taking target practice using cutouts of Barbara holding the cocoa as she was when she was answering the door, and the bullseye's not on her head or her face, it's on her stomach. because we needed to be reminded of the killing joke again.
We always do.
And
Yeah.
we will be again too. He wakes up. Babs is by his bedside. He's been in an induced coma for 3 weeks. The crisis is over. He wants to get up and go superheroing. Barbara orders him to get back in bed now. And he says that's and he basically makes a joke about how that she usually says that in a totally different context.
Sure.
Then she asks if he's hungry, and she presents him with a chocolate malted from O'Toole's in Gotham and a picture of cheeseburger because he can't eat solid food yet. So it triggers a memory of their first date. They had swiped Bruce's Rolls Royce, skipped school, and went to O'Toole's for burgers and shakes. It's very Archie. They're interrupted by sirens. And by the way, Babs pays for the date because Dick forgot his wallet. And they go into the Rolls Royce to change into their costumes. Dick's in the front seat, Barbara's in the back. Dick clearly is looking in the rearview mirror, watching Barbara change. And she says, "Eyes front, Grayson." They fight Crazy Quilt, who actually lures them into a trap, pulling them he puts them into a safe, and he loads the safe like on the back of a truck, and so they're like really, really tight together. And she says that like, wow, your utility belt's kind of digging into my leg, and he's like, yeah, utility belt. And then so Batman eventually rescues them. He asks Barbara if she's okay, and Dick's like got his cape wrapped around him because he's clearly trying to hide his erection. I'm sorry, his utility belt.
Yeah.
So back to the present, Barbara's helping Dick train, getting him to do acrobatics again. And it's frustrating for him. He fails on the high bar, but he does well on the rings. And then they go to Metropolis, and I believe the park in Metropolis with the Superman statue is called Centennial Park, but I'm not sure. It's here where the 500-pound gorilla in the room is mentioned, which is the proposal. Dick tells her that she has no idea how long he's been in love with her. Now, Barbara tells him that she does, and we see a moment after one of their cases where Robin is professing his love for her while she appears to be asleep on the couch in whatever apartment or room they're in. She's turning her backs to him, but she's awake and she heard him, but she didn't say anything because she was scared it wouldn't work out. All the stress he was under. This is around the time the Titans had just reformed and he was arguing with Batman all the time. So why put that other stress on him? And when she finally gets the courage to go to his apartment in New York and tells him how she feels about him, Corey answers the door in her underwear and wearing like his Gotham Knights jacket or something. Bab runs away in tears, and Corey never ever actually tells Dick this ever happened. So they go their separate ways and live their separate lives. In the present, Dick apologizes to Babs for not being there for her when it was important. It's here that we get the killing joke again. We see the memories of her recovery, but Dick's not there. Actually, Bruce is there more than Dick. He tells her that he'd been on Tamaran and he didn't learn about it for 6 months. Now, I'm going to nitpick. The killing joke, we know, takes place like right before a death in the family. Because in a death in the family, Barbara's in a wheelchair and there's a mention of what he did to Barbara, the Joker. So, killing joke, death in the family, probably close to the same time. I think they came out very close to one another. Now, when the Death in the Family is coming on, they're in New Kronos for the Who is Wonder Girl storyline. So I was like, I think that they were there. Either way, the Titans were off planet, different part of space, maybe. It probably doesn't really matter. It just gives you a reason that why Dick was not at her bedside, aside from the fact that he was still with Corey. In the past, the Dick arrives at Bab's apartment with flowers and says he needs to tell her something. So we're in another flashback and she's like, shh, and kisses him. So then they sleep together. I don't know if this is their first time sleeping together or not, because did you pick up on that was the first time or possibly?
Yeah, I mean, it might be.
I know.
Yeah, and it's hard because if this actually happened, I can't necessarily place it. So yeah, it's just interesting because
Yeah.
did this happen or didn't it? That's like an issue. And
Well,
yeah, I
yeah.
don't know. Well, the other issue that you have not brought up that we'll have to talk about is
Mhm.
that this makes it out to be that they are the same age.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. When
which is
did
not
they?
true, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
they've de-aged her. So if they still kept the age difference, which of course was one of the reasons why she wasn't going to listen to his confession because there was this age difference, which because that was
yeah,
happening in Batman Family. And remember the kiss that
yeah,
like 1,000 letters sailed because of it.
yeah.
Then this probably would have been the first time that they slept together because
Okay,
it wouldn't have
yeah.
been, she wouldn't
And
have
it's
been a
great
predator.
timing. Yeah, and it's great timing too because the next morning when he wakes up, he gives her the invitation for
Hmm.
his wedding to Corey, and she throws him out. So I should tell everyone that this moment takes place somewhere in the middle of New Titans number 100 because the last page of New Titans number 99 is Dick proposing to Corey, and the wedding is issue 100. It's a foil covered disaster of an issue. And I'm not kidding. It's this rushed wedding. There's all sorts of craziness. Terry Long is there. There's evil lesbian Raven. There's Bill Jaska art that is absolutely horrible. There is a really cool Titans villain two-page spread by Phil Jimenez, though. I will give it that. But yeah, it is a mess of an issue. Anyway, we cut back to the president. Dick is now in costume. Babs has him in a Houdini sort of trap, like he's in chains hanging over for spikes, and he has to get out of them. He gets out of it. She shows him that he wasn't actually she wasn't using spikes. It was like they were foam or whatever. And he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, Bruce would have actually used metal spikes. But after he gets out of it, they have a conversation about apologies. And she says that they're going to have a future together, or if they're going to have a future together, they have to let things go. So it's right then where Bruce uses his bat timing skills and calls. He invites Dick on the boat trip that we see them leaving for at the end of Infinite Crisis. And he tells Barbara, or Dick tells Barbara, and she says she knows about it because Batman came to her for her approval before asking Dick. Again, what is this Batman? This isn't Bat Jerky, right? Bat Jerk would have just said, no, you're coming. Forget Barbara.
Yeah.
I'm very
He's
confused.
growing.
Yeah. She then says that he needs to figure out who Dick Grayson is before they can move ahead in their relationship, so she gives him the ring back. And the next morning, Dick wakes up to a letter from Babs that I'm going to read. It says, Dick, a letter is a bit chicken, I know, so sue me. We both know you have to go with Bruce, not because of him, but because of you. I love the man you are, Dick, but you need to be happy with him too. Not the Flying Graysons, not the Billionaire's Ward, not Robin, not Nightwing, not the Bloodhaven Cop, and not Barbara Gordon's husband. You have spent your whole life defining yourself by others, putting yourself last. It's an admirable quality, Dick. It's what makes you a hero. Now you need to find out what makes you a man. Go. It may hurt both of us for a while, but it has to happen. Don't worry, I'll be there when you get back, and I can't wait to meet Dick Grayson. I'm sure he's a pretty amazing guy. Love always, Babs. So we then get to the boat scene at the end of Infinite Crisis. That as Dick heads out into the world, we see Barbara get his response in the form of a picture of the two of them as Robin and Batgirl. The engagement ring, but it's on a pendant and a letter addressed to her. And that letter reads, sorry, I'm scrolling through the comic. Babs, you're right, as almost always. Know this, no matter where I go, no matter how long I'm gone, I love you, Barbara, and I will come back to you someday, I promise. And we end with a panel of him on the bow of the boat looking out, or maybe it's the stern, looking out onto the horizon with the image of her, him as Nightwing and her as Batgirl, kind of about to kiss in the sky. And then the next panel, which is the last panel of the issue, is Barbara looking at the ring on the pendant and saying, I'm going to hold you to that one, Grayson. And that's the end of the issue. And that is the end of Nightwing Annual number 2.
Thank you.
Oy.
Thank you for that. Yeah, now you can take a little break, get yourself
Some more water
some water.
in my
Yeah, absolutely.
in my Superman cup.
Yes. Um my friend Josh Bertoni, he talks about this issue a lot. And so
Mm,
I was like, oh, well, what were those continuity issues that he
yeah,
said? And so you brought up a couple, and
yeah,
I just thought I would read some of the ones that he did. You talked about New Cronus.
yes,
And yeah, whether he was on Tamaran, it seems like they say that it was on Chronos for those
yeah,
6 months. It says he says, when Dick visits Babs in the flashback after she's been shot, he says he's fresh from his trip off Earth, which doesn't make sense.
no, it doesn't.
Him giving Babs the invite to his wedding to Corey places this around New Titans 99 and 100, as you
Yeah,
said, years after his New Cronus trip and years
yeah, we're
after his last trip to
yeah,
Tamaran.
we're talking like 45 issues because like he
Yeah.
gets back from New Chronos in issue 55. Now there's one annual where he goes to Tamaran and that's like in 1990 or so, but yeah, we're talking like the whole Titans hunt and Total Chaos storylines
Yeah.
happen between the Killing Joke and that scene. So it doesn't make a lot of sense that it was like, that it
Yeah.
was there.
Lots of maybe constricting timelines potentially. Yeah.
Yeah, for dramatic effect.
Yeah. Dick was in full mullet mode in New Titans 99 to
Hmm.
100. And he has
Yes, he
short hair in the
was.
flashback. And if you read New Titans 99 to 100, the time between Dick's proposal and their wedding was very rushed and not a lot of time
Hmm.
to sneak off to Gotham for a one night stand with Babs.
Yeah, it was like a matter of weeks, I want to say, like if
Yeah.
that.
He also
They rushed into
mentioned
it.
he also mentions that is this proposal happened because of Dick accidentally cheating with the shapeshifter, which I did read 100, and um Corey makes mention of that he
Hmm.
didn't understand why she would be upset. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, after Total Chaos, there's this tension between the two of them that they're fighting back and forth about. He's trying to make everything go back to normal, and she's still upset about
Yeah.
Mirage. And then everything happens, and then she eventually. So Raven kisses her in 100 and plants like a Trigon seed in her, basically drives her to the point where she ends up like in an asylum,
Wow.
like Arkham or something, and then she gets out and goes through this like Tamaranian like Ponfar type of ritual, which kind of sets her on this path to being the more like warrior like person she becomes. Um, and then in issue 114, which is the last Titans issue before Zero Hour resets the book, they break up. Like for real. Like I think she like he has like a rooftop romantic dinner set up for him, even though I think he knows that this is it, and she never shows up and she flies away.
Oh wow.
And then she goes off into
She
space.
ghosted him.
Yeah,
Okay.
she does. She did ghost him.
Yeah.
So they don't see one another actually until I think that Titans JLA miniseries.
Yeah. And then the
So
last thing is,
anyway,
as
sorry.
no, no, you're good. And then the last thing is that Dick is preparing for his wedding in New Titans 100, he learns about the events of Nightfall, which actually
Yes.
that was very odd phone call. He's like, "Oh, really? Oh," and then he just continues on. I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
Bruce having his back broken, obviously. If Dick had visited Gotham during this time period, as Nightwing Annual 2 claims, surely he would have known.
Yeah. And yeah, which the reason behind that, I believe, is that Denny O'Neil couldn't get Nightwing
Oh,
the
for that crossover?
for that crossover.
Okay.
Yeah, no, because he was still in the hands of the Titans creators. So
Interesting. Okay.
he gets him for Night's End, I believe, and that's where Dick has essentially left the team already and then is permanently out of the book and blah blah blah. But there's a little bit of overlap. But yeah,
Okay.
Nightfall, he's nowhere to be seen because, and I editorially he was in
Okay.
the Titans camp.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah, that 100 was very odd issue. I did read it. Tom warned me. He said, "Are you
why?
sure you want
I
to?"
said, why are you going to
Well, I
subject
mean,
yourself to that?
I know. Well, I also read, the Outsider, any of the ones you mentioned in your
Hmm.
synopsis. I thought, I should do that. But yeah, he was very like nonchalant when he received news that Bruce's back was broken, which was interesting. I do
Yeah.
have two short questions, which I think can
Hmm.
be cleared up by you, and then we'll dig into the meteor stuff. Does Dick not like being called Deathwing when he's with Rose because of what happened in New Titans 100?
Yeah. So Deathwing, if anybody's unfamiliar with it, was how far back do I want to go with this? In Armageddon 2001. we have all those crossovers where we see the heroes as they exist in 2001 when Wave Rider touches them because he's trying to figure out who Monarch is.
Oh yeah.
And he touches Dick Grayson while he's being held captive by the wildebeest in the middle of the Titans hunt. And we see him 10 years into the future. He's still alive. The Titans are still missing, presumed dead. Lord Chaos has sprung up, and he is the offspring of Donna Troy and Terry Long, and he's like kind of this mad god, and he ends up being the villain of Total Chaos. Anyway, they are a rebel. The Titans are a rebel fighting force trying to overthrow Lord Chaos, and Dick is leading the team that would become the Team Titans.
Mm-hmm.
And he and Mirage Miri are lovers, which is why she ends up going after him once she comes from the alternate future.
I see.
Like they send the Teen Titans into the past to kill Donna Troy. It's Terminator style.
Gotcha.
Eventually, the Nightwing from the future shows up, and then uh, Evil Raven gets a hold of him and like corrupts him, and he becomes Deathwing.
Yeah.
And the original Deathwing is drawn by Phil Jimenez. Like if you thought the collar, the V-neck on the original Nightwing costume was like low, this one all the way down to his belly button, and he had like 80s metal hair, like he should be the guitarist of like Rat or Quiet Riot or something. And he gets Mirage pregnant. He assaults her. It's a whole thing. But yes, he's
Yikes.
Deathwing. And
Okay.
so I think that Devin Grayson's just being cheeky.
Okay. Because he does say,
Like,
"Don't call me
yeah,
that."
yeah,
Yeah.
she's like, don't call me that. And
Okay.
I think it's Devin Grayson being cheeky because she totally would know the reference, et
Okay.
cetera, et cetera.
Lovely. The other one is, why is Dick suddenly wearing a cast at the annual at the end of the annual number two?
I have no idea. I didn't even
Okay.
catch that until you pointed it out
Yeah. Is it
that,
okay? The
wait, I
best I
thought
could
he
come
was,
up with is that he hurt himself when he fell from the Houdini trick, and so he had to put that on. But
that
yeah, it
was
was
my
just like
question.
out of
Did he hurt
nowhere, and
himself
I
in
thought,
rehab?
huh?
Yeah.
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 Okay. Well, there you go. Okay. So
Does
what?
it,
Yeah.
does it, I don't have my copy of Infinite Crisis in front of me. I was
Okay.
wondering if it's actually that's what he's wearing at the end of Infinite Crisis,
Oh.
and they had to put it in there for continuity's sake.
Oh, but
But
he's
I
not
agree with
wearing
you.
it
Maybe he
during the
hurt.
rings when he's doing any of his acrobatics.
Yeah, no,
With
I
that
mean,
sort of
like,
cast, he shouldn't have been
yeah, I
doing any of
know.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to say I think I
Yeah.
agree with you. He hurt himself rehabbing.
Okay.
Maybe he took it too
Lovely.
far, which, you know,
It does
tracks.
happen. Yeah. Without the issues that we've talked about, the continuity issues, as well as maybe personal problems that we have, ethics, do you think that Nightwing Annual 2 is a good story?
Out of 5 stars
Oh,
or five Corey in her underwear,
oh, whoa, whoa, whoa.
probably like a 2.5 to a 3.
Okay.
It's got its moments,
Yeah,
and there are some very good moments in there. It's kind of a clip show type of thing,
which, yeah,
and we don't know where it's going forward because I don't know how it lines up with what's going on in the title anyway.
right.
But it has some very heartfelt moments, some funny moments,
Mm-hmm.
as far as the eyes front Grayson, the him
Sure.
professing love. Those are genuinely funny moments and stuff.
Yeah.
But overall, not story-wise, it could have been better.
Yeah.
I was not a big fan of the art in the issue. I will say that.
Yeah.
So,
Another thing she says with that particular scene is, you at least have to buy me dinner first, and she had to,
yeah,
pay for dinner. I've got some strong history with this because at this point in my life, when it was coming out, which was 2007, I was just collecting Dick and Bab's interactions in comics. I had this Excel spreadsheet. I was getting the Nightwing, the Bat, the Birds of Prey whenever it was popping up, and then of course Infinite Crisis happens, and I'm suddenly picking up comics on the regular, and heard this Nightwing annual was going to come out, and if I recall correctly, it was delayed because I think it was solicited much earlier than it actually came out, and I kept going to the
Okay.
comic store and asking, "Hey, when is this coming out?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's delayed," which is the first time I think I had ever experienced that. And trying to understand, because it was supposed to somewhat like fill in the gaps there, like what had gone on. And so at the time, I think I certainly did have, an erotic tingle of like, oh my gosh, the shipping, it's lovely. Look at them. But also it's super devastating to see some of this stuff that goes on. And you're right that it's funny. I think maybe it was the most risque comic I had ever read because of the whole, being trapped in that small area.
Hmm.
I wasn't really reading stuff like that. Reading it now after having delved into this history, and I think being more mature, I recognize it for its flaws, and I think I have more of a visceral reaction to that whole sex and then giving your current slash ex an invitation, which is, I don't know, which I do want to talk about. But yeah, it's not as good as I originally
Hmm.
thought it was. And I feel like if you had taken out maybe some of their history, but what's beautiful about the couple is because of their history. But if you had just like focused on him rehabbing and them having difficult conversations and showing how much they have grown from
Yeah.
their previous conflict, because really it comes down to, should you get engaged to somebody that you still have the same issues with them that you did before? So you got
Hmm.
to kind of prove that no, we've grown. And in their voicemails, as I was talking about in 100, they're both saying that they are intending to grow and they'll make their way back to each other. Do they get there? I feel like we're having conversations, but we don't necessarily have it seen. But I think that's why, and we'll talk about it, that there's like this ambiguity of what's going to happen. But it is interesting. It's an interesting
Yeah.
ride, but I would agree if you're on the five scale, I might give it a 3 out of 5.
What's interesting too is the flashbacks. I think the last flashback is the wedding, like the sex and then the wedding invitation.
Yeah.
Why not flashback to Birds of Prey number 8
Yeah, for sure.
or any of the other moments of their
Yeah.
relationship and maybe some of the more recent issues where they were having problems? It
Yeah.
seems like it stopped there.
Yeah. Infinite Crisis, not No Man's Land,
No
like
Man's
them
Land. Yeah,
getting
like
together for
there's
real, for
so
real.
much
Yeah.
more that this could have been.
Yeah.
So maybe like I don't know if they just wrote those scenes in because they wanted to be salacious in some way or
Yeah.
another, or they thought that those like people would like really like those.
Yeah.
I'd also like to point out that I'm pretty sure that you and I were going to the same comic book store and didn't realize it back in 2007 and 2008 because I think you were still living in Charlottesville at the
Oh,
time.
sure. Yeah, that is
Yeah,
true.
yeah. So we
Yeah.
were
Oh my gosh.
missing one another
That's crazy. That's crazy. Atlas
because
Comics.
I started going there like late 2004 to early 2005. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy. Um, do you feel like they're even engaged? This is interesting because you remember the Aeneid. There's a big thing in book
Mhm.
4 of like, are Dido and Aeneas actually married? She believes so, he doesn't. But are they even engaged? Because it seems like twice. He doesn't even let her answer. They just kiss. And I mean, she has the ring, but is it like
Yeah.
a tacit engagement? What do you think about that?
No, I looked at the panel. She's kissing him. Because she's wearing the ring and her hands are not just on his face, but like on his neck. So she
Okay.
pulled him in and kissing him and she's crying. So I believe that is a big
Okay.
yes
Okay.
from Barbara.
Okay.
What about you?
Okay. How I read those panels, I felt like he was stopping her with the and then kissing her.
Hmm.
But yeah, okay. I'll have to relook once my computer won't break down that I'm looking at another browser. Um I'm trying to decide because I do want to talk about Dick sleeping with Babs, but I guess
Yeah.
I'll wait a little bit. With how Dick and Babs are presented in the lead up to Infinite Crisis. So their history, breaking
Yeah.
up, being kind of on two different pages, but saying that they're going to grow and probably make their way back, as well as the engagement and then the annual that we've just read. Do you think it lays to rest who is the one true pairing with Dick, or do you think it's still debatable? And obviously, we're on two different sides. So I'm asking
But
objectively, what do you think?
the thing is, I don't think we are because
Oh,
I believe it is Barbara.
okay.
But and we have another. Well, I know we're going to talk about the Corey versus Barbara thing later,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
like, I've always gotten the feeling that he'll always come back to Barbara, because that's something, but he'll always also love you. He'll never regret Corey,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this isn't like she's an ex or she's an old girlfriend, but she's not the ex in that like really negative way.
Okay.
But yeah, I believe that they're setting it up that like it'll always be her. But the thing is, I don't think DC would ever let them get married.
I
So
see. Even though they did in Convergence, that was as
yeah,
close as we're ever going to get.
I don't even remember Convergence.
Okay.
You had mentioned Convergence, and I know I have like a couple of the crossovers
Probably
somewhere,
Titans. There's a
but I have the
Titans in
Titans
there.
and the Teen
Yeah.
Titans ones. But I was like, I don't remember what happens in the
Yeah.
Convergence issues.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So only in our dreams will they
Well, and
be
in the Kingdom
married.
and Kingdom Come, him and Starfire have a kid,
Oh, interesting.
Nightstar, right? And
Okay.
she looks like Starfire, but she has black hair.
Oh,
So yeah.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's just lovely how he talks about her to Sophia
Hmm.
in whatever issue that at 109, I think that I was reading. And yeah, I mean, we've had this debate before. I think that we're both at different points in our lives that I might be
Hmm.
more articulate with it. But then I was reading the vows that he said to Corey in 100. And so I was trying to figure out if he loves them in a similar way, or do you think he loves them in different ways? Do they give him something? Because I think partners provide us, with different things. Do you feel like they provide him, um, I don't know,
I
with things differently?
I want to say, I mean, I think they're both passionate women, so I'm not saying that like Barbara's like the stable, safe choice because that's not the impression that I get from her. Um, I think it's just in a different way. Corey is very upfront with all of it. It's why he
Hmm.
says in that one scene in The Outsiders issue, you make me feel alive. Like there is
Yeah.
a very hot burning passion with her, but with I feel like on Corey's part, especially too, it's pretty deep, and that like I don't think it's superficial for Vic either, but there's something like way deeper that what he has with Barbara
Yeah.
that is partnership, companionship, and like love that I think has more chance of surviving like a longer test of time than him and Corey.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I can't explain why it wouldn't last with him and Corey.
Hmm.
And maybe it just kind of burns too hot
Mm,
and such. But that doesn't take away from it. That's not to say that Barbara's like again the safe one or something. No,
yeah.
I think it's just on a totally different level.
Yeah. And I think maybe maturity wise too, I think
Mhm.
maybe he just needed to grow out of the lizard brain in order
Yeah,
to maybe be properly with Babs. But
yeah,
I mean, this is saying that they're the same age, but I think because there is that age
hmm,
gap, I think initially, I don't
yeah,
know where we are now. I think they're back to the same age in this current continuity.
yeah.
But that is something like she would be dating a boy potentially.
Hmm.
So, for
Yeah.
him to grow up and get with her. Yeah.
When post crisis did they de-age Barbara to be closer in age to Dick? Because in pre-crisis they were like she was much older than him, right? Was she like in
Yeah.
her 30s, right? Or she was in her late 20s? Usually, I want to say
Yeah.
there's like a good decade between them.
Yeah, because she was a
But like
congresswoman.
when is it established? I can't remember when it's established in the post-crisis DC that she and him are closer in age. I know in Robin year one, there's that one panel or scene where like Gordon's talking to Batman and Robin on the rooftop, and she's there, but she's kind of like hiding behind
Yeah.
Jim and kind of checking them out. And I think she's supposed to be around the same age
Okay.
there.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure.
Because even Batgirl year one, she does seem like she's older than
Hmm.
Robin, who does appear in that. But the
Yeah.
same creative team was there. So that'd be weird if they had continuity issues within
Well, I guess
their
there's a
own.
difference between like 10, 15 years older and like one or two,
That, yeah, that's
you
true.
know,
Or perhaps
especially
five. I
when you're
don't
an
know.
adult.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know when it happened. It just sort of slipped in there. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm trying to think of,
Yeah.
even within Birds of Prey, it still seems that she is older than he is, like in issue 8, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, in the way Ballin draws her in that scene in The Killing Joke, she looks like she's in her 30s.
Yeah.
Like, way, because she's retired as a superhero. So she's, in my mind, she's way too old in that
Yeah.
scene, or looks too old in that scene if she's supposed to be. And they do kind of play with her age a lot, even in the New 52 and afterwards.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, she was like 21 with
yeah, it's
well, with
convenient.
Burnside
Yeah,
anyways. Yeah.
whenever it's convenient, I
Yeah. Yeah.
guess.
You got it. Since we're still, yeah, we're still talking about Corey, who do you feel like created the conflict between Corey? Because there very much is, I think, a team Corey and a team Babs. Do you think it was the fans, or do you think it was fueled by editorial and the writers that are like, let's create something, or did it just happen?
I don't know because here's the thing. I was trying to look. I was looking through a chronology of Corey's appearances post the end of the New Titans, and there aren't many that don't coincide with like Titans related stuff. She's in a few of the like Our Words at War, some of the big crossovers. She's in a few Wonder Woman issues or anything, but there's nothing that suggests that there's nothing in any of the comics I've ever read, and I did stop reading at one point in the 2000s that there was ever a rivalry. Like they're not Betty and Veronica
Hmm.
or Lana and Lois pre-crisis. They're the way I've seen it is that he let's say he dated Barbara in high school, or they were that way like in high school. He goes off to college in his 20s and he's in New York and he's with Corey, and then he and Corey break up, and then he and Barbara get involved again. So it's less of a competition between the two of them, more just it goes from this relationship to this relationship, and
Yeah.
Corey's simply an ex when he's with Barbara,
Hmm.
etc. And so I don't know why there seems to be a rivalry because it
Yeah.
never really seemed to be in the comics. And I think I took a picture of this to you and send you. There's a from a couple of years back. There's a Tales of the Titans miniseries that was a spotlight on four of the Titans: Donna, Corey, Raven, and Gar. And in the Corey issue, there's a few panels where she talks about like Oracle calls her on the earpiece and said there's something you have to take care of, whatever. She thinks about her relationship with Barbara and she says like, we could be friends. We have some things in common. There's a panel of them at a Black Canary concert with Barbara in the wheelchair and Corey behind her, and they're both dancing. And in fact, there's a song that later in the story that Barbara plays for her over the radio. So I never get the sense that these two don't like each other. And like I said, it never seemed that the left hand knew what the right hand was doing with the two
Yeah.
things. So I don't know if editorial's playing them up or certain writers are playing them up because they want it to happen or the
Yeah.
fans. I cannot give you a straight answer as to like how this came about because it
Sure.
never seemed to me that it was just one relationship to the other. It was never
Yeah.
like one was cheating on,
Yeah. Well, I
etc.
mean, I feel like I see a lot of it just like in this particular issue
Hmm.
because she comes to see Dick. She's ready to have a relationship, and Corey answers the door and in a state of undress. But
She's wearing a varsity jacket over a t-shirt, but she's
yeah,
got like lace panties on.
yeah. Well, Earth customs are still unknown to her,
This is true. This is
but
true.
the I think Corey knew what she was doing. Well, I just said that, and Corey knew what she was doing, and not telling Dick that she had come. She said
Yeah.
that it was a wrong number.
Yeah, I know.
So that is interesting. And then with the whole wedding, like my gosh, I don't think I would want to hang out with someone if I just slept with the love of my life and then he is getting married tomorrow. So
Yeah,
I'd be like, oh my
that
gosh.
is a yeah, that is a jerk move.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's kind of nuts.
it
So,
tracks though with the rush into the marriage that he had with Corey though. Like, what Josh was saying, like, he rushed this after like trying to get back together with her, trying to get to a sense of normalcy after the Titans hunt and total chaos and the whole Mirage thing.
mm-hmm.
And like even she later on when they broke up, like acknowledges that they weren't, even though they had been together for so long, they were not thinking straight. Like she was like, why were we rushing into this? We were almost married and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So his not that you should cheat on your girlfriend, your fiance right
Yeah.
before the wedding, but it does track with his state of mind at the time.
Okay. I was going to ask if you felt like it was out of character.
Not for the time because he's pretty messed up and he's pretty messed up all the way until he goes like through Prodigal and then the solo title and stuff like that. Kind of how he's messed up here until the end of Infinite
Yeah.
Crisis. So
Do you feel like you would get that same read if you had only read Annual 2?
no, because that scene's doing a lot of heavy lifting for continuity that I don't think a lot of people reading at that time really would have known.
Yeah, I
Like,
wouldn't have. So it
because
just seems like a really bad
yeah,
move. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
yeah,
who is
because
this guy? Is he like this?
yeah, because we're talking a reference to a comic that by that time was almost like 15 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, and wasn't wasn't Nightfall or the Killing Joke or the Death of Super wasn't like a marquee storyline. It's kind of infamous for its lack of quality, really.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Knowing that Dick was initially intended to be killed during Infinite Crisis, which is something that you mentioned, does it make this whole story, them getting together, this engagement, um, or sorry, is all of this made more powerful and tragic or empty?
mm, I think, I'm agreeing with Shag from the previous episode that there are a lot of really empty deaths in Infinite Crisis. Um, I have a lot of beef with Jeff Johns over the I'm gonna kill all the 90s Titans characters. I'm gonna kill the characters, symbolically kill the era that everybody hates. Because he does.
Mm-hmm.
I have beef with Jeff Johns about a lot of things, but some of the deaths in Infinite Crisis, like some of the cannon fodder characters, I kind of get it, right? Because you needed to show that, but at the same time, some of them were too violent. Connor's was like the only one that felt earned in that sense
Yeah.
because it was the end of a very long arc. But even then, you had to be reading a lot of the books, etc. So,
Yeah.
although I will say this is a tangent, and then I'm going to get to the answer. At around the time of right about they started Infinite Crisis, there was a trade that DC put out called Prelude to Infinite Crisis. And the format was similar to the old Marvel series, Marvel Saga, where there were text pieces and then panels from comics. And it went through all of the appearances and little pieces and breadcrumbs and Easter eggs that were in all these comics prior to the Countdown for Infinite Crisis special. I have a copy because I bought it for like very, very cheap. It's really cool to read because it's like, over here in Titans, this issue, this happened. So it kind of like here's all the little pieces that put this puzzle together. Anyway, uh, Dick's death, if that was the way he was gonna die, I don't know if that was what they were gonna do. They were gonna kill him, like, but they had him survive in
Mm-hmm.
that scene. That would have been the worst. Because, like, if you think about Crisis on Infinite Earths, you've got two like marquee deaths, right? Supergirl and Flash, like, and they both have covers. They're enormous. There's a lot of other deaths and a lot of characters die. This would have been akin to the death of Wonder Woman in issue 12. Because in issue 12, the Anti-Monitor hits Wonder Woman and blows her away. And it seems like she's dead, but there's a panel later on where Harbinger's like recalling like what happened in the aftermath, et cetera, et cetera. And it's revealed that she wasn't killed. She was just reverted back to clay, and then we eventually get the Perez redesign. So it's not necessarily an empty death. It's like, oh, this is kind of a reset of the character. I don't think they would have done that with Dick Grayson here or something like that. And this would have felt like really empty, like for all this, and then we're just gonna indiscriminately kill off a character who's been here for like 70 years or whatever. A major character in the DCU. This isn't like, dropping the building on Huntress of Earth 2 or something like that. So I think um I think the death would have been empty. Um
What about the engagement?
the engagement the engagement's kind of tragic. I mean, because he's rushing off and everything. It's very like World War II war bride type of stuff, like he's going off to war, marry me, I'll be back for you, honey, and stuff. So there's a poignancy to it. If he had died, it probably would have been a little bit more tragic then
Yeah.
because it would have been an interesting arc for Barbara to see, like, well, how do I recover from this? Because this was this huge romantic moment, and all of a sudden, oh my God, he's dead. But yeah, it's like half earned or unearned in terms of like the broader scope of things with Infinite Crisis is concerned.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, having read a lot of Teen Titans by Jeff Johns
mm,
and understanding the loss that Cassie felt,
mhm.
that's a big loss right there. So I feel like having that engage, if you were to kill Dick Grayson off, I think that would have been powerful, not advocating for it at all. But because now they're like almost stuck with this character to be alive and to know that they're never going to marry them is super sad. So that's why I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
was this useless or are we actually going to do something about it, which is unfortunate. Oh, let's see here. How does Infinite Crisis, as well as what we see in
Hmm.
this annual, reestablish the emotional bond between Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon after their, this says years of separation, but it's hard for me to actually say whether that's years or not. But their separation in terms of their breakup when that was happening.
I think the one thing it does is that like I said, this is really messy. Just in general, Dick's life is a mess. Barbara is a little bit more on solid ground because it seems like in Birds of Prey, she's like in really solid ground compared to what had been happening with like, some things prior to that. But Dick, like post Donna's death, you got the Blockbuster's death. Like this is it's almost like this feels a lot more real because he's really a complicated human character.
Mm-hmm.
And Babs is flawed too. Like Babs has a lot of pride that gets in the way, and there's other emotional characteristics, and they're both. I think it helps put them on a more mature level, and I think it reestablishes the bond between them. But I don't know if they have fully figured out what that will look like going forward.
Yeah.
And that's to me, that's pretty realistic, actually.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the weak point of it is that, like I said, there's a lot of talking, but they don't
Hmm.
necessarily, I think, hash out everything that
Yeah.
they were having trouble with, and we don't see anything. Also, the timeline is so accelerated because they had that conversation prior to 100, that they'll find their way back to each other. And then he's in his dark era, and then Infinite
Hmm.
Crisis happens, and it's more of a wake up call. Like, I might die tomorrow, and
Yeah.
who is the person that I want to be with? And then it's Babs. So I think it's very much like in a flash pan or whatever. Is that what it's called? Like fire
Flat.
in a
Yeah.
flash pan, whatever
Like a
that
flash in the pan, or
yeah, something like that. We're like, woof, very
oh,
quick and together. And then I guess what we would see, which we don't see, unfortunately, is what this looks like. So they get together and then they sort of hammer it out at the end. But he's got to
hmm,
work on himself, which is true. I mean, she says you got to go to Nanda Parbat or wherever they go
yeah.
and work on yourself. But we've got this promise together to be on. Yeah.
Hmm.
Do you feel like the flashbacks deepen our understanding of why their relationship failed before and what they mean to each other, or does it not do a good job of that?
I don't I think it certainly shows like how long he's been in love with her,
Mm-hmm.
right? And shows that the relationship or the emotional bond and the way he feels about her has matured because he's no longer like teenage puppy love. It's there's something a lot more, you know, tangible and real here. But I don't know if it really deepens their understanding of why their relationship failed because, like I said, the flashbacks stop way too early for that to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. They don't get into any of the major conflicts that they
No.
have. Just their different ideas, I think, of the world
Hmm.
and what they're going through, and that the big thing is he's living in the past and keeps saying like we can be like this, and she's like we can't be like that. And yeah, all if I were to, I mean, the first one is just like young puppy love, and did that even fail? It was just like this, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Well, she's more concerned about being a good partner to Batman. I think they both had
Yeah.
those ideas rather than being a romantic relationship. And then they weren't ever to they just weren't on the same wavelength, I think, to a certain extent. And she was dating Jason Bard, and
Hmm.
then, it's just missed
Yeah.
timelines. And then he was in a dark headspace, and that then it doesn't get into for showing the Killing Joke. There's not much of the fallout from that beyond the physical, I would say.
Yeah.
It does not get into her psychology and what that looked like for her, because I think that was a failing. And they're doing the whole first person perspective, which is a different question, that they
Yeah.
shift perspectives and everything. But you'd think if you are seen through Barbara's eyes, that you're also going to get into her psyche. But that was a complete failure, I think, with this story.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
Did you like the shifting perspectives that it went back and forth between, I guess, really third person in the beginning, and then there was Dick, and then Babs being first POV? And what do you think about that?
I thought it worked, but like you said, there needs to be more. This
Yeah,
could have been an arc as opposed to just an annual, or the flashbacks could have been shorter or better selected. So it's
yeah,
not, I think the point of view shifts work, but I just think the content needed to be better.
yeah. It might have needed to be a 64 issue. Or
Yeah.
sorry, 64
64 pager.
page,
Yeah. Yeah.
to be honest. Do you feel like his near death experience? No, I'll skip that one. Sorry. I want to go
Mhm.
back up. Do you feel like her hesitation, Barbara's hesitation about commitment, reveals something about her sense of autonomy and her trauma because of the Killing Joke, as it compares to Dick's romantic idealism that we can overcome anything?
Possibly. I mean, is she very guarded because of her trauma and such? I hate constantly going back to the Killing Joke because at
Yeah,
this point it's so far in her past.
yeah.
Not that it shouldn't still affect her, but it's written so I don't know if you share this opinion with me. Sometimes I feel like it's written like she's never gonna get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Like they keep coming back to it and it's like, but we've got like decades at this point worth of comics
Sure.
that have her character development. Sometimes I feel like they completely ignore it just to show the Dan Killing Joke scene again.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if she has a lot of guards up, you know, the woman in the tower, almost literally, right?
Yeah.
Type of thing. Whereas he does have that sort of idealism. He is essentially the bright part of the DC universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's got this light, this brightness he always has. So, I guess you can see the contrast there, but I
Yeah.
don't think that the issue's doing enough work to really show us that.
Yeah, I would agree. And if this is true, if this question is true, then she's not grown at all, which I
Hmm.
see as a big character flaw, because I think she does really seek autonomy, because now she's living in a completely different way, and
Hmm.
she's got to sort out how do I live now in this different state of being. And so that's a big thing for her. And reconciling with the Killing Joke at this point, even still. But if she's still doing that now, even though, she underwent a lot of growth in Birds of Prey and was trying to like separate herself from Batman and Dick and like go on her own. And so if she is hesitant because of that, then she's fallen backwards. So I have a problem, I think, just in terms of characterization there. Because I think she's gotten to a point where she understands sometimes she does need help, but she can stand on her own. And that
Hmm.
was something she needed Dick to also understand, that she doesn't always need to be like the damsel in distress with him,
Yeah.
because of this new lifestyle that she's living. Um, yeah. So that is interesting. Whereas, yeah, I think he thinks, they can overcome everything together. They can be the way they used to be. And she's like, no, that's not what it's going to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like his near death experience during Infinite Crisis catalyze his emotional growth and influence his feelings towards Barbara? Is that what it took?
I think it stabilizes him a little bit. He's pretty chaotic going in there. And then I guess the idea of seeing you're almost losing yourself or somebody else
Yeah.
can be scary. Um, I don't know if it catalyzed it. I think it was happening already. Maybe it made it clearer
Yeah.
of us, or kind of helped him reset his priorities and how he was feeling. And I think it also helped that like the entire issue in the present day, like she's rehabbing him. She's doing what he was not there for her to do.
Yeah.
Um, so
Very true.
so I think that's part of it too. That I think that's a big, I think even more than his near-death experience, like what she was doing for him when he was um rehabbing, and basically, you know, the beatings will continue until morale improves.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
no, yeah, she's like, 'cause
Yeah.
she doesn't let up too, and I think
Yeah.
he appreciates that on a huge level too. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think he feels guilty that he wasn't there for her at this point?
I want to, I want to say he probably does carry some guilt for that, because now he may not have at that moment back then. Maybe
Yeah.
he did a little bit, but not to the level of like I fall in love with her, and maybe I do regret not being there for her
Yeah.
because we were such good friends. Even though he was in a completely different solar system.
Yeah.
But also they were in both different phases of their lives too. They
Yeah.
really weren't together at that point. So, but
True.
still, like I wasn't there for my best friend,
Yeah.
so to
And I
speak.
mean, he was so blasé about Batman's back getting broken. So
Hmm.
I guess it's just par for the
Well,
course for
that jerk
sure.
had it coming.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I can't remember, even though I just read this
Hmm.
last episode, but if there was a space between Connor getting killed. No, everything was kind of rushing all at once, wasn't there? Connor getting killed, it kind of rushes to the end. Because I was
Connor
just
gets killed
wondering,
at the end of issue 6, right?
okay, you might be right, yeah.
And
And then it's
then
just to the
7.
end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Shag would be like, "Are you crazy?" But I think Infinite Crisis needed to be longer.
Whoa,
Well, I
that
mean,
is controversial.
I only in that there's so much that happens in that book that I think it needed more room to breathe. And the back half of it seems very rushed in places. And I think it was running up to deadline things. And there's just, you can tell the cracks show pretty easily. Because the first couple of issues in Infinite Crisis are really tight. And I was like, because I bought this as it came out and I was really excited. And then as it got through, I enjoyed the story, but it was just like more and more just didn't make sense. But if they had like 10 or 12 issues and kind of kept things what they were, they might have been able to
Mm,
pull it off in a better way. But anyway,
yeah.
that's
Yeah, well, I was just thinking
conjecture on my
about,
part.
yeah, major deaths, and might that
Hmm.
have been a wake-up call, and would Dick have thought? Because I mean, when Cassie is weeping over Connor, I think you immediately think of your own loved one,
Yeah.
and oh my gosh, what if this is me? Also, maybe when Super Prime is like blasting through some Titans,
Hmm.
that might have been also that time. Yeah, so I feel like in the midst of tragedy and violent events like this, we do immediately think of our person, and I think given the phone conversations that I mentioned multiple times, and 100, it was going to be a slow and steady working on ourselves to get there. But then when we're thinking that the world's going to end, let me have this declaration, and if anything happens, then we'll come
Yeah.
back together, sort of thing. Yeah, for sure. Does Nightwing Annual number 2 portray love as romantic? It romanticizes love between superheroes or within the superhero genre, or do you think it critiques the cost of being heroes and shows what is at stake?
I think it does a little bit of both. I definitely think it doesn't critique it, but like it shows the cost
Mhm.
of it. I mean, it's not it's not the death of Gwen Stacy. And I'm deliberately bringing up Spider-Man because I mean, one of the ways that Dick Grayson's like portrayal in this series did get compared to Peter Parker way back in the day. Um, that's why I wonder if that they would never let Barbara and Dick marry because they don't want the Spider-Man Mary Jane marriage thing to happen, even though like I don't know, I haven't read enough of Spider-Man to consistently to like have a judgment on that, but
Mm.
I wonder if that's like they kind of look at that and they're like, oh, I don't want that to happen. Also, Dan DiDio doesn't like superheroes getting married. Um, but yeah, I think because these two, I think it's a great superhero love story because it is so grounded as opposed to like uh, like Superman and Wonder Woman or somebody like that. And then Superman and Lois's story is great too, but there's a difference. Like she's a reporter. She's like risking her life in a different capacity and everything. And he's Superman. These two are very much like on the same level of one another. Whether they're Batgirl, whether she's Batgirl or Oracle, and I think that's really really cool. And I'm glad that they have that, and they're showing us that because it's but it also shows that like the risks that they take and the problems that you run into and the tragedy that can happen. So
Yeah.
I think it does strengthen it a little bit.
Yeah, I absolutely was thinking about Spider-Man. I think
Mhm.
Spider-Man overall is perhaps the most successful tale of, yeah, the cost of being a superhero in
Yeah.
love with someone who is either also a superhero, Black Cat, or with someone who is, a civilian.
Hmm.
I think that it romanticizes it in the flashbacks, and I think you mostly see the costs of being a superhero in the present day through the
Yeah.
training, through their discussions, through him dealing with the trauma that he experienced in Infinite Crisis as well.
Hmm.
So you mentioned something that you said they're on the same power level, and that was one of my
Yes, that's
questions in terms of do you feel like as Barbara moved into being Oracle, that the power dynamic between her and Dick sort of shifted? Where, and I guess we have to be careful here
hmm.
because if we think about originally, there was a different power dynamic between her being Batgirl and him being Robin because of that age.
Hmm.
So we'll say in the universe of this Nightwing Annual 2, where they're kind of the same age, do you feel like that power dynamic shifts when she becomes Oracle? And also, do you think gender roles shift?
There's something very progressive about these two in that like Dick's looking for an equal partner, and I don't think Dick would ever be feel emasculated by being with somebody who is stronger either emotionally, mentally, or physically than him. I mean, for as gorgeous as Corey is a very strong woman, physically and like emotionally, etc. Like there's especially when she's older as an adult, there's certain like, she's not a bimbo. I hated the way I hate when they try to portray her as a bimbo because she's not a
Sure.
bimbo. And with Barbara, they're they are like I think he loves the fact that the two of them are like right here, and they were kind of there. I mean, they were both pretty immature. He was definitely immature when he was Robin, but so she gets shot, and her becoming Oracle, like, it obviously changes her, but it also shows her that she's, like you were talking about this earlier, like she's not helpless, right? And she doesn't have to be the damsel in distress, and he doesn't have to treat her. He doesn't get to treat her as someone who is broken, and I don't think he ever consciously would, but she never gives him that chance because she's her, and I think sometimes she does it to her own detriment, like she's too proud.
Right.
But yeah, so I like him, and I like the way that the power dynamic is very much on an even plane, and they're like a partnership. So there really is no power dynamic,
Yeah.
so to speak.
And yeah, with traditional gender role, I don't know that Babs ever fell into what I would consider a traditional feminine
I think
gender
so.
role, anyways. Yeah. And Dick has very much been, I think, a man who lifts other women up. I mean, just looking at his friendship
Mhm.
with Donna.
Yeah,
So I think they both break outside of that, to be sure. Do you feel
Barbara's a
like
Velma.
Velma, you
She's
say?
Velma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think she very much grows into her own. It's hard to, I mean, looking at her history, it's hard to really think that there was a time, anyways, that she was like oppressed. But,
Hmm.
in the silver and bronze, you do have like the men, trying to always lord over her or
Yeah.
something. But being a congresswoman and, having the PhD and everything, she was still fighting it. And yeah, I think
Hmm.
she never bowed, or yeah, she
Yeah. Yeah.
never bowed for them, I think. Yeah, so she was always breaking, I think that.
It was
But
pretty consistent too.
yeah, I would say so. Yeah, the power, I think he might want to have that shift unintentionally, as you said, right? Just that I think something that comes maybe unfortunately naturally between someone who might be able-bodied and someone who is not.
Hmm.
But she, as you said, she pushes back against that. And so I think then he has to respect her autonomy and her working for herself. Yeah. Do you think that Nightwing is a bottom then? Is he bottom or is he a switch? What do you think? What do you think? Hello? Head and hands. You knew it was coming. It was that question right there. It's a very tiny font. I'm just
Oh
kidding. It's
yeah,
not there.
it's right there.
What do you think?
Um,
Hmm.
oh, Dick Grayson's whoever you want him to be.
Oh, okay. There we go. So write in, folks. Tell me, is he a bottom? Is he a top? Is he a switch? You let me know. Okay. I'm trying to think. I feel like we're kind of at the end. Do you have anything you want to say about the tone and pacing or the visual storytelling? Otherwise, I'm gonna skip them.
I was just like I said, I was really lukewarm on Joe Bennett's artwork. I
Yeah.
felt like the faces were really stiff, and I think
Mm,
I was trying like there's some female artists these days who would have done this story really well, but I can't think of who 20 years ago. And I have to go back and like look through comics to see who was drawing 20 years ago who really
right.
would have done this well. And I'm like maybe Terry Dodson, I don't
Yeah, I
know,
know
or
Terry and Rachel. Yeah,
yeah,
they do
like
good.
Adam Hughes. I'd love to see Adam Hughes draw Nightwing and Oracle, but I don't know if it's just because it's Adam Hughes. But maybe the Dodsons or somebody. But like there needed to be um a little bit more of a softness um to the way it was drawn. I can't even explain it. It's just I was not a big fan of the artwork.
Yeah, I think
Um,
even in the when they're kids,
yeah.
they seem too mature.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, there was something about it. There's almost an eroticism throughout, to a certain
Yeah.
extent. It's hard to explain, but yeah, and I feel like some of those scenes did not call for it. So yeah.
He put a lot of effort into the scene where Corey opens the door.
Oh my gosh.
'Cause, I
Yeah.
mean, Corey's like 6 something feet. She is a
Yeah.
very tall woman. And Babs is what? 5'6", 5'7".
Yeah.
She's like average height. So the height difference of Babs seems really small. And almost girlish next to this,
Yeah.
glamazon. Um, but and the fact that like but to his credit, he didn't overdo it with the Corey scene. It could have been a lot more. Um, but yeah, no, I think it would have been this would have been better with another artist, but it also had pacing issues, and we needed to have more. We talked a lot of it about that. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like this relationship symbolizes hope and rebuilding for the broader DC universe in the aftermath of Infinite Crisis? Or is that putting too much weight on the shoulders of this relationship?
They fumbled the ball so badly after Infinite Crisis in some ways. Some titles did really well with it. You had the Sinestro Corps War and Green Lantern. You had, I think Morrison eventually went into Batman RIP soon
Right,
after
right. Yeah.
this. The first Superman storyline, Up and Away, was really good, and then the book kind of stumbled. Uh, some of the other ones, the Wonder Woman's pretty decent. The Wonder Woman got her entire title turned around. Donna was Wonder Woman for a while, but there were shipping and deadline issues and things like that. I mean, so this kind of got lost in the shuffle, at least as far as I can tell. But I'd have to go back and read a lot of 1 year later stuff to tell you. It's also something that Dan DiDio can't stand. So,
Yeah.
so I don't know what they. Sometimes I get the feeling that they put this issue together because there was just an unanswered question.
Yeah.
Because when Dick gets back, like we are, like, wait, what happened to the engagement?
Yeah.
So
It's
and
true.
so, yeah,
So even if it does, it goes nowhere.
I
If
don't
it
think it
had
goes
gone
anywhere. Yeah.
somewhere, then maybe it could have been like, look, we're in a new era of
Hmm.
DC. It's going to be brighter and full of hope, and it doesn't. And
It was,
even this story ends ambiguously, right? It's like,
yeah,
oh, are they still engaged or not? She gave back the ring, but he gave it back, and
yeah.
yeah,
It's like a promise.
yeah,
I don't know. Well, and the other thing is like, Infinite Crisis, the end was supposed to be everything's a little bit brighter now. And then within like 5 years, we have the Sinestro Corps War, which is very dark, which is dark, and Blackest Night, which is even darker. And then we have Final Crisis,
yeah,
where Dark Side wins
yeah.
and is it's also confusing as heck as the end of it. And I don't know if you'll ever get to it. I'd love to help you make sense of it.
Oh, I
But
read it
there,
once and I was like, huh?
yeah, there's just like it's like, wait, this got even bleaker. I thought this was supposed to be
Yeah,
the kind of we were supposed to be on the upswing. So,
yeah. Well, to connect back to Shagalicious' episode, I asked
mhm.
why writers do that. Do you think there's something that do they believe that readers want this dark storyline? Is it something that's coming from within them that just always reverts back to this darkness, even though we're promised brighter storylines?
I don't know. I don't know if they're thinking, well, this is the stuff that gets comics sold.
Interesting.
Like
Yeah.
like let's get a or the hero always has to go through these like horrible things and stuff like that. I don't know what goes through. And Chag was right where he was talking about how DC constantly does this over the last couple to 20 years or so. Like, things are bright, and then there's Dark Crisis, and then there's Heroes in Crisis, and there's all these darker events that get so dark and in some cases don't have any fun with it. Like the series that I loved the most coming out of DC the last year or so that I've been reading in the app where the issues drop, so I'm several months behind, is the DC versus Vampires one, which is dark as anything, but at the same time, it's so fun to read because it's just, it's got its issues and everything, but at the same time, like I said, I'm reading it on the app, so I'm not paying $100 for like the whole plot
Sure.
thing.
Yeah.
But like it's campy in places and it is bleak in places, but at the same time, I'm really enjoying having it reading it. But I read some of the other really dark stuff from like the Justice League Cry for Justice,
Mm,
where James Robinson kills Leanne Harper. Like, why did we need that? That's what I'm complaining about. It's like
yeah.
it's dark for dark's sake. I do like the shocking stuff sells at the moment, but like then you got to deal with the aftermath, and you need really talented writers to give you the pathos and kind of get you back there.
Yeah.
And some of those writers are not there.
Alas. Okay. Tom's rubbing his eyes, and I
No,
know
sorry, I'm itchy.
from Todd Wars that means he's
Oh,
tired.
stop it. I itch just
So
like crazy.
we'll wrap this up. Do you feel like this annual sets the stage for future interpretations of their relationship in later comics? And we're talking about all the reboots that we have: New 52,
It
Rebirth, Batman Eternal, Convergence, as I said.
it could be a touchstone for it. I have to admit, I've never read Batman Eternal. Like I said earlier, I don't remember.
Yeah. They were
And I have
putting
to
her
go
with
back
Jason Todd, though, so it is an interesting
yeah.
kind of shipping her with Todd. Yeah.
And then I don't it's been a while since I read the Rebirth comics around
Yeah.
these characters, so I'd have to go back and read them because I didn't start rereading Nightwing on the regular until the Tom Taylor run started. So there's a lot of Nightwing prior to him that like there's a huge gap in my reading. I mean, but it could definitely be a touchstone if they wanted to keep it in continuity.
Yeah.
But they'd have to, they have to actually do something with it.
Yeah, I feel like whenever I see them together, which in Nightwing they seem pretty happy,
Hmm.
but this history, all of the struggles that they went through is not really present currently, which
Yeah.
is unfortunate because they had to get through a lot in order to get to a stable place, and to sort of ignore that, I think, is really unfortunate.
Hmm.
So Nightwing Annual as a whole, them getting together and having this momentous conversation, I think that's great, but I feel like it's not popping up
Yeah.
necessarily, unfortunately. So, final question: would you recommend this to a Dick and Babs fan?
Probably not. I mean, especially because in the last 5, 10 years, there have been a lot of really good stories. Like we mentioned the Tom Taylor Nightwing.
Yeah,
There's some great Dick and Bab stuff in there.
yeah,
Um, and I think there's other stuff that overshadows this, even going back past, in the past before this, like I'd give them Birds of Prey, number 8,
100%.
and a number of other books before I give them this.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess it would be, I would say, if you're doing a complete read through
Mm-hmm.
of both the Barbara Gordon stuff and the Dick Grayson stuff, then yes, you have to read this because it does kind of try to fill in the blanks with some of the stuff that happens around this time. But if it's just like I'm a fan and I want to read like good Dick and Bab stories, there's like a ton of better stories out there than
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. It ignores many big points and
Hmm.
moments in their history, so that you would just get this truncated version that seems more sexualized
Yeah.
than anything. And their relationship, while it might include sex, is deeper than that. It's got an emotional depth to it. So
Hmm.
it is, yeah, a bit sad,
Yeah.
alas. Okay. Thank you, Tom. Two listener emails from YouTube. I do have two longer emails that I haven't forgotten about the people, but I think I might save it for when I'm on my own and talk about it. But I do want at least I have two YouTube comments, or three. Two of them are from the YouTube episode with Kelly Thompson, that interview, which was on episode 268. Donovan Morgan Grant came on and said, I think Kelly Thompson is a terrific Cass Kane writer, and I adore her approach to writing her expressing herself, often opting to keep her as nonverbal as possible while maintaining that she is intelligent. That's pitch perfect characterization. And Comic Book Muscle wrote, I've been one of Kelly Thompson's most ardent critics. Constructive as I may have intended, it likely wasn't looked fondly upon by many that support her work on Absolute Wonder Woman. That said, I have to applaud her finally. Absolute Wonder Woman number 15 is what I've waited to read from her. Just a good story, much like her creator own worked. It didn't have the try hard effort I felt with the other stories and trying to throw everything in without nailing the character. That was a solid read. The characters felt more natural, and while the art still leaves much to be desired in terms of action, it serviced the story well. Well done. And then episode 269, Donovan Morgan Grant came back on and said, what artists would you adapt for a Barbara Gordon tattoo? Terry Dodson, Guillaume March, Ed Benes, which is interesting because I thought he was trolling me. Because two of the three seem like trolls, but Terry Dodson, I do love Terry Dodson and
Yeah.
Rachel Dodson art. I frankly would probably use a still that is, my camera flicks off, you see this particular one. This would
Oh
probably
yeah,
be
this
what
is
I would have.
that's
So
Scott
yeah.
Beatty.
Oh, Marcos Martin.
Marcus Smithine. Okay, sorry.
That would be, I think that
Hmm.
what I would put on my body if I were to choose any artist. But again, it's hard because you love this character so much. If you got a tattoo of a comic book character, who would it be? And do you know what artist you would use?
I'm not the type to do tattoos because I always for me it was like you're trying too hard. Let me see.
This is all hypothetical.
This is tough.
Yeah. Would it be Dick Grayson?
Maybe uh like honestly that'd be weird. Like I'd probably go for more symbols anyway, like a Batman or Superman symbol. But I think like the funny thing is I think like a Marshall Rogers Batman would be more striking tattoo than say
Oh,
a Dick Grayson.
okay.
If it was a Dick Grayson tattoo, it would definitely have to be just for the fun of it, like a George Perez disco collar Nightwing
Okay.
tattoo. I mean, you've got to
Sure.
go for the silliness of it. But if I'm gonna do like, there's this big comic book tattoo character like on my back or my arm or something, it's like old school Bronze Age Batman, and like Neil Adams or probably Marshall Rogers because I love Marshall Rogers Batman from the that the Laughing Fish, Deadshot Ricochet, like that Detective Comics run
Yeah.
with that he did with Steve Englehart. Like that's one of my all-time favorite looks for Batman, so that's probably what I would get.
Lovely.
Mhm.
Okay.
I do not have any tattoos, by the way.
Oh, okay.
It's just like I said, it always seemed like something that I would. I don't think I'd be able to sit still long enough, but it always seemed something like you'd be trying too hard if you did it. But I've seen some really cool ones. I saw a guy in line at Universal. We were on the same ride, and all over, up and down his arm, it was just scenes from Star Wars,
Oh my
like
gosh.
full color. I was like, that is so cool. Yeah, yeah. So, and I've seen some really, really badass tattoos. So I have nothing against tattoos. Now, like ugly tattoos, that's a whole different
Sure. Yeah, it's
story.
a horse of another color, as they
Yeah.
say. Lovely.
So anyway.
Okay, well, now we're wrapping it up. We'll do Stella's Dungeon of Smut. Would you like to go first, or shall I?
Oh yeah. Now I can't remember if I've mentioned I have a couple. So I know we've had a conversation about this, but I can't remember if I mentioned it on required reading or not. But I'm rereading the fifth book because I was just kind of curious. For some reason, I wanted to reread it. But there's a Stefan Stepchick, and I don't remember how you pronounce his name, and I apologize. And his wife have done a few have this multi-volume collection called Sunstone that Image has put out, and there's like 8 volumes in it. And the
Yeah.
first 5 are this love story between this woman named Lisa and another woman named Allison. But it's all within the context of like BDSM. And it's not something that I'm usually watching or reading,
Hmm.
but the characters are really, really compelling in like a Francine and Cachu sort of way. And so there's all of this smut, and it's a full color graphic comic book that is like, totally all the nudity, and the sex and everything. But like I'm rereading the fifth volume because that's the last part of the Allison and Lisa story. Then there's the Sunstone Mercy series that starts after that, which is like they're in it, but the main characters are like 2 other characters from this whole thing. Anyway, the fifth volume is like more of their love story than like all of the salacious sex stuff. And like I did not expect to get I was looking for more of his work after I read the DC series Harleen, which was this origin of Harley Quinn that was on the DC Black Label series. I was like, I wonder what else he's done. And I stumbled across this in Libby, of all places. And I was like, so I kind of went, I was like, ooh, it's porn, right? I'm like reading, okay, okay, okay. And I'm like, I'm getting really attached to these characters, like really attached to them. It's really
Yeah.
good. And then there was another one that's in the same realm that I don't remember who the writer was and the artist and stuff. And I probably should look it up, but I'm lazy. It's called Swing, and it's in the context of this couple that enters like the swinging lifestyle,
Okay.
which again was fascinating because it's a well-written couple, married couple, and again, you get attached to the characters in the story, and the sex is almost secondary to it as as erotic and arousing as it is. And then another one I would recommend, which is not really so much smut, it's more of an action thriller thing, but it has a lot of smutty nudity, and it's currently there's going to be a Ryan Murphy joint on FX, which is The Beauty, which
Oh.
is not Mad Cave. Ignition Press puts it out. And they're in their like second series, but the first volume, complete collective volume, is out. And the whole concept is that there's this STD going around that people want to get because it turns them into people who are really hot,
Oh.
but they start to discover that it increases your metabolism so badly that you like spontaneously combust. And there's like these two detectives who are head of the beauty unit. So it's this conspiracy thing, and the sex, and it's like funny and stuff in the same way, but it's less of a smut. It's not really a smut romance. It's more of an action thing. But the Sunstone book, I was surprised by how much I was invested in it, and hope that he keeps the story going because even the second volume of it has been like fascinating.
Yeah. And I would say that even though that is erotic, because I've read that,
Hmm.
that it's not along the lines of 50 Shades, which is I think more about titillation and not necessarily understanding or treating the
Yeah.
BDSM culture, I think, respectfully and what it actually means to
Hmm.
people, which is why I talked about what,
Yeah.
why I liked Deep End by Allie Hazelwood so much, because I thought that it was really thoughtful. So yeah, I've also
Hmm.
read it. I don't know that I've read all
Yeah.
of the volumes. I feel like I stopped after the main couple maybe sort of tied off,
Yeah.
so I might have to, yeah,
They're
return.
yeah, they're all on Libby, or at least
Okay,
I was able to get through Libby.
lovely.
And I will give this to the artist. It's not so much, I mean, he draws beautiful artwork and the women and the men, his faces. It's the faces for me, the facial expressions and the way the characters' faces are drawn that's what gets me. And it's that, because anybody can draw a pair of boobs, but this is,
Sure.
it's something about the way the characters' facial expressions are. It really, really works.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what bestiality are you sending
Oh
my
my
way?
gosh. Well, yeah, I have 2 months to let everyone know. I'll just tell you whether they're okay or recommend. Oh Goalie Night by K.M. Gillis. I would say
What?
Oh Goalie Night. It's a hockey romance.
Yeah,
I would
I
say that
get
was
it.
okay. If You Claim Me by Helena Hunting, which is in a series, that was okay. The Pining Paradox by Monica McCallan, which is a woman loves a woman. I recommend that one. Hate to Love You is okay. Jennifer Susevich. Mate by Allie Hazelwood. I did enjoy. That was a werewolf and a human, but she finds out actually she's goes into heat. So that causes some things. So could read that. Hate Mail took me a long time to read, but we did it. I would say that was okay. And Grumpily Ever After by Tegan Hunter. That was okay. Check the Halls, which is, of course, in the same continuity as Goalie Night. That was okay. And Snow by Brittany Nicole. That was okay. And then here, we'll get to it. The sequel to Kiss of the Basilisk,
Oh, jeez.
which is called Between Two Kings by Lindsay Straub. Highly recommend. Of course, I gave Kiss of the Basilisk 5 out of 5. This one I give 4 out of 5. I was disappointed with the ending. I thought something was going to happen. It did happen, not in the way that I wanted it to. And then I wanted something else to happen that didn't happen. And I felt sort of betrayed, frankly. Um, what should I say? Now, remember, folks, children, that Kiss the Basilisk, just the escalation, right? I said I couldn't imagine it getting crazier than this, and then it did. So this one, of course, it's starting up here, and you're like, how's it going to get even crazier? And I'll say that there's a ceremony because all these things always happen in ceremonies where she has to have sex with 10 basilisks back to back to back. Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. And this is all because people contested her marriage. So that's just one part. And then, goes on because maybe she'll choose one of those 10. So thank you. I do recommend Between Two Kings. You might be upset though, but that's the end of it. That's the end of that story. There's going to be a prequel, but as far as I'm concerned, that the story is
Mm.
over. So now let's go to more tasteful things, Tom. What do you have for literature recommendations?
It was funny. I was looking at my story. I don't use Goodreads anymore. I use Storygraph, and
Oh,
so
because you can do
Storygraph
half
did.
stars?
You know what? I don't really rate the books. I just kind
Oh,
of
okay.
catalog them, and it seems like my mood for this types of stories is like low because I've been reading a lot of thrillers,
Oh,
and a lot of thrillers that have female protagonists. So I've got about four of them here, and one I have one nonfiction book. The nonfiction book I will recommend first. Toxic 2000s culture fame 2000s sorry Toxic Women, Fame in the Tabloid 2000s by Sarah Diddam, which basically takes you through the 2000s through the lens of the stories of a lot of the female stars who were in the tabloids: Britney
mm,
Spears, Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian, Jennifer Aniston, Angela. I don't know if Angelina Jolie is part of it. Janet Jackson stuff, and really digs into like how misogynistic the culture was 20, 25 years ago. It still is in many ways, but like really, as somebody who lived, we both lived through that.
yeah.
It's a really fascinating examination of that, and I was really, I love those type of books that do pop culture history and cultural history and stuff like that. So I really recommend checking that one out. Now, the four thrillers that I have, A Slow Fire Burning by Laura Hawkins, who's most famous for The Girl on the Train.
Mhm.
This was really, really, I thought this was really good. A woman who there's like, a dead body is found. They're looking for who's the murderer of this dead body on a houseboat in London, and it goes back to this one girl who has a troubled past. The two parents of these people, there's one of them who have never, there was a tragedy involving one of the moms, the baby, et cetera, et cetera. So it twists and turns to the point where you figure out what really happened, and you're kind of genuinely surprised. Um, Everything We Didn't Say by Nicole Bart, which
Mm,
is this woman returns to her hometown about 20 years after she witnessed a pretty brutal murder of her neighbors, and her brother's been accused of it for 20 years. And it's another, like, she's been looking into this. She's very convinced her brother didn't do it. A true crime podcaster seems to be breathing down her neck about it. Like, so things are starting to resurface. And over the course of her time in this town, over like 3 weeks to a month, things start to unravel and such. So I just finished that the other day. A Killing Cold by Kate Alice Marshall, which takes place around Christmas and involves like a woman and marrying into a very rich family. And she, for some reason, remembers being at their winter estate when she was a child. So there's a whole backstory to that gets revealed. And The Girl from Widow Hills by Megan Miranda. This is a girl show comes, has skipped town, comes back under a different identity, and again, like what's revealed in the past. So I'm always a fan of like those. I've become a real fan of those types of books because they're just fun to read and they're very quick. And then around the time this comes out, we'll be releasing Lessons in Chemistry, which is the
oh,
um, required reading for February.
yeah.
So yeah,
Who knows when that'll get edited?
who knows?
Uh, I'll try this week. Got a 3-day weekend. Thank you.
Hmm.
For my normal literature, quote unquote, The Long Walk by Richard Bachman,
Hmm.
aka Stephen King. I thought it was okay. There's a lot of weird sex stuff in there,
That's
That
king.
I
Yeah.
know that's what people keep telling me. And they're teenage boys, but also like they're walking and they're gonna potentially die. And I mean, one of them I think dies of
Hmm.
blue balls, like literally, because this girl runs up and starts humping him, and I just like, what? We've lost the plot here. What's going on here? So it was okay. I did also watch the movie, and that was okay, but they changed the ending. Tom Lake by Anne Patchett. I give 5 out of 5. It emotionally
Hmm.
affected me in a way that I didn't think it would have. I was not prepared, and I can count on one hand, really, the types of the novels that have done that. Just felt like really sad, even though it's lots of flashback because it's this mother telling her daughters her time at Tom Lake over a summer, a community theater with this guy who would become a famous actor. And so you know that it all turns out fine because she has this loving marriage and these 3 kids. But I don't know. I just was very deeply affected. So I highly recommend Helen of Troy by Margaret George, which will be on the season finale whenever I get the time to do that, of Dear
Your
Reader,
reader.
season 3. I do recommend it, and I'll be talking about that further. The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I would say that was okay. I also went to see the film. The film, I think for what it was, I thought that was pretty entertaining. I was shocked, like the twist initially of The Housemaid was, I thought, pretty good. I recently finished The Housemaid Part Two,
Yeah.
and that I thought was a better one. And so I'll do the third one, which I guess is not as good. Absolute Wonder Woman Volume One by Kelly Thompson. I really loved. I highly recommend that.
Ditto.
And
That's a great.
yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I also really like that Tom King Wonder Woman series. That's the main one too.
Oh yeah, same.
Yeah.
I've only read one volume. I need to get a couple more. I Medusa by Ayana Gray. I really liked. So in the perspective of Medusa and looking at like bringing race into this mythology as well
Hmm.
and kind of shifting some things. I'm trying to get the author to come to school. It's interesting trying to work through an agent and
Yeah.
having to do that. I haven't heard from you dot dot dot. And I think, yeah, that is where we are because I'm currently reading something new now, so I'll talk about that later. So those are all my unhinged and hinged
Hinged.
books. Well, Tom, thank you so much for coming on and chatting Nightwing and Babs.
Yeah.
I guess I should say Dick and Babs and Nightwing and Oracle and Annual and all of that.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. And I'd love to be on again for something else. So
Gosh. Okay.
before you finally close up
Close
shop
it.
here
I
and then
know.
are just stuck doing book after book with me.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah. Well, send any questions or comments at backrolltooracle@gmail. Oh, well, I don't know. I'm so sorry. Tom, where can people find you? That was terrible of me.
Oh yeah. Well, obviously you and I have that required reading podcast, required reading with Tom and Stella. And then I have my own podcast, Pop Culture Affidavit, which is just about a month when I'm actually on schedule every month for random things in popular culture. And I do have a blog that's associated with it. You can find that at popcultureaffidavit.com. And I'm PopAff, that's POPAFF on Blue Sky.
There you go. He's left the Twitterverse.
Oh, I left the Twitterverse a couple years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Remember, you can send any questions or comments to backrolltooracle@gmail.com. Do you have an email if people have issues with what you've said?
Popcultureaffidavit@gmail.com.
Lovely. Like the show on Facebook or follow it on Twitter at Batgirl the Oracle. Subscribe to the show on YouTube for an uncut version, which you're watching right now. Follow the Batman Universe on Facebook and Twitter as well, and support the Batman Universe by subscribing to Patreon. Once again, thanks to Mile High Comics for sponsoring Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast. And until next time,
Fly on, Babs lovers.
wow, someone who actually gets it done the first time.
I almost trolled you and gave
Oh
you a completely different exit.
no. Gold
I
star for
almost
you.
said shine on, Corey lovers, but
Oh
I've
my
decided to be
gosh.
good.
Thank you for being kind.
Yes.